So basically, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna reread this whole like little short story I've got going, and then you guys feel free to like give any kind of feedback that you think would be interesting. Um, Anything that you think is kind of lackluster, or if you think that there are certain ideas where the story can go. Honestly, like I'm really excited to try to um I'm really excited to try to write this like with people giving feedback as I write, because if it's boring as hell, then I don't I want to fix it. So here we go. Oh, by the way, fair warning. This is technically like a horror novel or short story, whatever it ends up being. I have an idea for it to be a novel, but if it's not that long, then it is what it is. Um but there is mention of suicide and some pretty disturbing themes. It is like it's there's some explicit language as well, but I'll read it and then I'll let you guys know what like the overall idea of the novel is gonna be. Um, so yeah, chapter one of The Fog by me, obviously. Um, I need to stop saying Holy crap, dude! It's just here we go. It arrived slowly, almost imperceptibly. It settled subtly and softly, surrounding the streets and structures that supported the city skyline. The streetlights formed umbrellas of luminescence that served as safety for the citizens. The fog wasn't frightening. Its calm presence and matter-of-factness made what followed that much more uncanny. It brought intrigue and mystery to an otherwise dull metropolis. Day by day, the fog began thickening. It grew more dense, more opaque, until it finally formed a cage around the city. It was suffocating. It seemed more like a gelatinous mass hanging in the air than water vapor. But the voices were beautiful. It felt as though we were hearing a forbidden language God never meant to fall upon human ears. Blech. Human ears. It sounded like the call of a siren, or the sounds whales make, to use echolocation. Still, we longed to be raptured by the symphony. So when I wrote this originally, I was trying to convey that the fog settles over like on the city's outskirts, and the city is like in the middle, and the fog has formed like rigid lines like a box around the metropolis, around the skyline of this city. So like you've got all your high rise buildings, and then in like whatever grid formation that the city's set up in, and the fog settles in very, very slowly and forms these very stark, straight walls of fog. And it's so thick that it looks like just like a gray gelatinous mass rather than fog, just because of how thick it is. And it never moves. It doesn't move with the wind or anything. It stays still. The lights were off in my apartment when I arrived home. They turned off every day at 6 o'clock. The power never went out. The lights just turned off. For 5 minutes, while the orchestral song echoed in the distance, the city listened in darkness. It was mesmerizing. All anyone wanted for those 5 minutes was to stay. Bro, my headphones keep turning off and then it cuts the audio because I'm not like listening to music or getting any feedback in the headphones. Um, yeah. Anyway, the power never went out. The lights just turned off. For 5 minutes, while the orchestral song echoed in the distance, the city listened in darkness. It was mesmerizing. All anyone wanted for those 5 minutes was to stay in that place and listen for eternity. For the mothers, fathers, children, students, businessmen, and women, for all the people who inhabited the giant monoliths they called homes, nothing existed but the euphoria induced by the symphony from the fog. Just as quickly as that euphoria would arrive, the song would end, the lights would turn back on, and the city would forget the glimpse of heaven they had just seen. As the song ended and I came back to my senses, I realized I was lying on the floor of my shower. The water was running, my clothes were still on, and I was choking on a washcloth that I had been forcing down my throat. I fought to dislodge the cloth from my esophagus and vomited as I rolled onto my stomach. I don't know long how I but I don't know how long I hadn't been breathing, but my insides felt like they had been burning for hours. I turned the water off and got out of the shower. I dried myself, got changed, and walked back out into the living room. I lived on the 15th floor of a high rise apartment building. I stopped and looked out the window of my living room at the wall of fog in the distance. The shadows glided across the surface like they were dancing, a performance in the void meant only for the lucky few in the city. Maybe they were dancing for me, as if they knew I was the one watching. They chose to move in a particular way that they knew I thought was captivating. They were drawing me in, inviting me to get lost in the song only we could hear, an intimate moment where the fog and I were one. I found myself back in my living room. I had this anxiety in my chest. I couldn't breathe, as if something was missing or had been taken away. Something integral to my being was ripped out, and I needed to find it. Had I always felt this way? Was this pit always there? No, I don't know. Was it there when I left the bathroom? I know I wouldn't have any success waiting around in my apartment. I ate my dinner and put on my jacket as I headed out to my car. It was a crisp night. The air burned as it entered my lungs, partly because it was cold and dry, but I'm sure the incident earlier didn't help. I drove the entirety of the wall looking for what I knew was missing but couldn't find. I thought I might find it somewhere in the wall. After an hour of driving, I headed to Les Torrents Hantés. I don't know how to say that, it's French for the haunting grounds, a local bar I frequented. I walked in to find the bartender exactly where he always was, several other patrons scattered throughout, and a man wearing a sweatshirt sitting at the bar. The man looked disheveled and tired. He had more than a few empty drinks in front of him. I sat patiently and waited for the bartender to come over and ask me what I wanted to drink. "How's it going, man?" he said as he exhaled. He seemed stressed, or at least bothered. He kept looking at the man in the sweatshirt as he nervously wiped his hands with a dishcloth. Must have brought him some cathartic relief as he didn't stop for some time. Maybe it was warm. It must have been. "Shut up, Mom! You're cut off! I'm talking! God!" Dude, every time. It's like every time I stream, bro, there is some random bot that like pops into the freaking stream, spams out like some AI botting viewer like promotion, and then just dips. And it's the most annoying thing on the planet. And then I delete the message every time. Um. Anyway, back to the story. It must have brought him some cathartic relief as he didn't stop for some time. Maybe it was warm. It must have been. You know, I feel like I need to find something, but I'm not sure what it is. I have this feeling in my chest. I don't know. I answered him, like something was stolen by the shadows in the wall. The shadows? Well, then I think you came to the right place, he said with a grin. How so? I asked. He looked at me as if he knew something I didn't. A smirk crept its way to the side of his lips. Le temps hanté. He opened his arms as if to gesture to the building that loomed over us. It means the haunting grounds. If you lost something or it was stolen by the shadows, it's the place to find it. He winked at me after he finally put a glass that had been clean that uh, he winked at me after he finally put a glass away that he had been cleaning for the past 5 minutes. He looked back at the man in the sweatshirt and quickly grabbed another glass to keep cleaning. I don't think so. The shadows, they were asking me to join them. When I pulled away, that's when I felt this pit in my stomach, this tightness in my chest. In the wall? Like the fog? What are you talking about? The wall is thick, motionless, and always has been. Are you doing all right? No, no. Oh crap! I forgot where this went. That's why I'm rereading it. In the wall, like the fog. What are you talking about? The wall is thick, motionless. Always has been. You doing all right? No, 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 that's I know what I saw. From my apartment, I saw shadows like whales or something large. There were four, maybe five of them. I paused for a moment and thought about how crazy I must sound. I'm sorry, I I don't know what's wrong with me. I must sound like a lunatic, I said with a chuckle. I stretched my arms and looked around the bar to break the tension. As I did so, I locked eyes with the man in the hoodie. He had been staring at me. You saw them. The man spoke to me, barely above a whisper. It took me a moment to process what he said. What? The bartender interrupted. All right, well, what can I get you to drink? You must have you must have come here for a reason other than ranting about shadows. I glanced uh I glanced at the bartender in surprise and looked back at the man in the sweatshirt. He had turned away as if he had never even moved. I tried to get his attention, but he seemed to be ignoring me. Um, Gin, I eventually answered the bartender. Gin? you, you haven't ordered gin a day in your life. Well, that's what I'm ordering today. Okay. Whatever you're looking for, you're not going to find it in that glass of gin. Thanks. I'll try to remember that. He was right. Gin is disgusting. I tipped the bartender and walked outside. I grabbed the smoke from my jacket and lit it while I sat in my car. I had been bewitched by the fog. It wanted me, and I wanted it. Even though I knew it was beautiful, it still felt like some uneasiness. I still felt some uneasiness about it. Like I was staring straight into a black hole, a magnificent anomaly in space and time with a gravitational pull that could not be resisted, an irrefutable force that consumed everything around it. No one knows what's inside. No one has seen what lies beyond the. I'm going to reread this whole thing because I really like this paragraph, and then I had to. I got distracted. I'm rereading this. Not the whole paragraph, but here we go. The black hole part. Even though I knew it was beautiful, I still felt some uneasiness about it, like I was staring straight into a black hole, a magnificent anomaly in space and time with a gravitational pull that could not be resisted, an irrefutable force that consumed everything around it. No one knows what's inside. No one has seen what lies beyond the horizon line. But deep down, we know we'll die. A street light. Hold on.
Mic off. Mic
I
on.
gotta mess with my headphones so they don't turn off on me. So that part is one of my favorite paragraphs that I've written so far. But obviously, give me your thoughts and opinions on how it sounds and if it's easy to follow. Um, yeah. Next paragraph. A street light offered its umbrella of protection near where I parked. However, the beams of light just fell short of my tires. The darkness was enveloping, all consuming, as if I had fallen asleep with my eyes wide open. I moved my car directly under the photons that fell upon the cold, wet pavement. As I placed the gear shift back into its original home, a gunshot was fired from inside the bar. The thunder of the primer being struck jolted me back into existence and stole my mind from the world in which I was wandering. My hair stood on end, and I turned to look inside the Pandora's box. That was the bar. Why is that there? Why are these random symbols here? My hair stood on end, and I turned to look inside the Pandora's box that was the bar. I saw shadows gliding across the window as if they were dancing. They were drawing me in. I walked towards the black hole which led inside the box. I opened the door. Patrons were frantically pacing back and forth, trying to rationalize what they had just seen. Others simply sat, frozen. The bartender stood in his normal spot, running his right hand through his hair while the other held the phone up to his cheek. There, in the center of the bar, lay the man in the sweatshirt. Blood dripped off the ceiling onto the man's face and pooled on the floor around him. He looked young, his body still warm. There was still color in his face, but the life in his eyes had already faded. A revolver kept him company as it lay cradled in the man's hand. I looked back at his face. Blood had polluted the whites of his eyes, blankly staring up at the ceiling before jumping to lock with mine. I paced slowly, so as not to draw attention to myself. His eyes followed me as I walked. I looked up to the bartender, his head in his hands. When I shifted my gaze over to the man on the ground, his eyes were back to staring at the ceiling. I blinked, looked to my right and left. I was sitting at the bar, with a sweatshirt on. I lifted my hand slightly to wave at the bartender. Another round, I said. Yeah. He turned around, began pouring the drink and paused. You sure you need it? I looked up and glared. Just pour the fucking drink. Yeah, I'm writing a book. It's Dave. Holy crap, bro. I probably shouldn't name drop, honestly. Bro, he popped in, bro. Yeah, I'm writing a book. If you're still there. Um, it's like I've been writing it for a minute. It's you do an audiobook, your voice is too soothing. Bro, stop. Stop, bro. Chill. Oh, what are you doing, bro? You just chilling? Um, but no, it's a horror novel. You remember the project I did in college for um I wrote the play basically. It was like a 10-minute play and it was just about dialogue between two characters. Do you remember that? And it was about the guy who like has the crazy wife and then he's in the bar and it's just crazy. So I had this story thought out already, and then I figured out a way to put that project I did in college into the story, and that's literally the part that I'm actually reading right now. If you're still here, but this is the this is that segment. Um, yeah, this is a. Do you actually remember the story though? I read it for plenty of people. This is explicit though. This has explicit language. We had just had our first that we just had our, oh shit, bro, you don't know. Well, it's about to get real. This is it is there's some explicit language in this sequence specifically just because of um just the nature of it. But there's also mention of suicide. So like if you're not comfortable with that, leave now. But here we go. Here we go. I'm gonna read it and then you let me know your thoughts in the chat, bro. Okay. Um, I blinked, looked to my right and left. I was sitting at the bar with a sweatshirt on. I lifted my hand slightly to wave to the bartender. Another round, I said. Yeah. He turned around, began pouring the drink, and paused. You sure you need it? I looked up and glared. Just pour the fucking drink. The bartender leaned over the bar. You know, I don't typically talk to my clientele, but you've been here a while, man. He paused a moment to look at the man sitting at the bar. Are you sure you need it? Pour the fucking drink. I clenched my jaw and swallowed. All right. The bartender finished pouring the drink. You got a name? Not one I care to share. What happened? Excuse me? The bartender pointed at the door. People don't just come in here by themselves and drink all night unless something's happened. Well, I'm not some people. Bro, this keeps happening. Whatever happened with the formatting, it just like inserts these weird symbols randomly. Well, I'm not some people. Just let me drink. You get fired, boss let you go, you in a abusive relationship. I looked up at the barkeep and let out a slight chuckle. Nah. Did you get dumped? Girl broke your heart, you catch her cheating? She died. A heaviness filled the room as the barkeep tried to be respectful. Oh, he paused a moment. I'm sorry. Um, you have my condolences. Fuck off. I have everyone's condolences. None of it matters. When did it happen? This morning. Tears began to slip into my eyes. This time last night I was holding her in my arms in our home. I'm sorry. The bartender didn't know what to say. Are you? The disdain and sarcasm were evident in my tone. I'm glad. I'm glad you're sorry. Makes me feel a lot better. Tears began rolling down my face, but I didn't blink, and a scowl was all that could be seen. Why is this weird, bro? Gotta fix this. Rolling down my face, not the man's face, my face. How'd it happen, if you don't mind my asking? Suicide. I thought for a moment. Well, in a way. I guess you could say she killed herself, but it wasn't on purpose. Unintentional fucking suicide, if that even exists. I let out a suppressed laugh. That's the bullshit the cops wrote down. What does that even mean? He gave an inquisitive look to the man. How does that happen? I was there. It was this morning. That was today. I stared into the table, completely lost. We woke up, and she was in the mood. You know, uh, sometimes she liked to experiment. This is where it gets this gets cooked, bro. It is crazy. She was kind of into this sort of she was kind of into that sort of thing. Hold on. Experiment? What do you mean? She was like kinky? She liked wax and like whips and playful stuff. I felt very uncomfortable. I never liked it. It always bothered me, and I don't know. She liked playing with razors too. Jesus Christ, man. Eventually, she kept wanting to do a little more, and a little more, and a little more. I looked down and rubbed my hands, a sign of discomfort and inability to cope. She brought some fake pistols and BB guns, and you get the idea. One day, she brought a real one, and we would mess around and use it sometimes. I mean, sometimes. She knew I didn't like it, but she was able to convince me every now and then. Shit, no way it was loaded. No! God, fuck, no. At least, not usually. One night, my headphones would be dying. Uh, at least not usually. One night, about a month ago, she loaded it. It was a little Kimber K6S. I shrugged. It's a 6-chamber revolver. My breathing began shaking. She just put one round in, but she didn't tell me. She was messing with it and put it to her chin. She pulled the trigger and it clicked. The chamber rotated and I saw the bullet casing from the back. Oh my God. I didn't handle it well. Saying we got in an argument would be an understatement. We were at each other's throats, and not in a hot way. It was terrifying. I was almost ready to kill her myself. I didn't know what to do. Like, what's going on in my wife's head? I stared into nothing for a time. Then I snapped out of it. Went to counseling for a couple weeks, but she didn't want to keep going. She just made her feel like a freak. Like people were judging her. We stopped going. I pulled out an identical K6S from under the table. This morning, the bartender saw the gun. Whoa! Shit, man, what are you doing? This morning she pulled the trigger. But this time She wasn't so lucky. Makes you wonder, huh? Who people really are. My wife is dead just because she wanted to get off on some fucking thrill. I continued to play with the firearm that I was holding while my face slowly hardened. The bartender sensed the tension in the air and quickly triggered the silent alarm located underneath the bar to call the police. Hey man, calm down. It's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be fine. Is it? Is it all fine? Everything's fine. I began to get heated and raise my voice. Everything's just fucking dandy, isn't it? It's all just sunshine and rainbows for you. You don't know. You don't have any idea that everything's just fucking fine. No one does. I'm alone. Utterly alone. A man who has lost the only thing that he's ever loved or cared about. He began to laugh stop. This used to be third person, but it's first now. I began to laugh psychotically. and the worst part is, I couldn't hardly recognize her when she was gone. Like, who is this woman I'm living with? This twisted monster who gets off on fucking shooting herself in the head. I need you to calm down. You're scaring me. Look, I know you're hurting. Trust me. My mom died when I was 17, so I know. I know what it means to lose someone. Really lose someone. It's hard, but we have to keep going. There are so many people who care about you. People who want to see you and know that you're okay. Yeah, well, I don't really want to see them. I'm sorry to hear about your mom. That sucks. I picked up the K6S once again and began to spin the chamber and play with the safety. I looked at it with complete apathy. Hey, hey man, what are you doing? Hey. I loaded the chamber with a single bullet and spun it like an old western. I flicked the chamber into place and cocked the trigger. I held the gun to the side of my head. Click. Hey. Hey! The bartender screamed. She was right. I pulled the trigger again. I pulled the trigger again. Click. Hey, come on, man, stop! The bartender was desperately trying to get the man to stop, but couldn't move out of fear for the safety of anyone else in the bar. This is kind of fun. I pulled the trigger again. Click. How about another round? Bang! And then, um, so what happened was originally we're following a protagonist, right? And he's going through some stuff. And then he goes to this bar, gets a drink, and leaves and goes out to his car. While he's in his car, he pulls out a cigarette, lights it, take a little drag, take a little driggy off the blicky, uh, right? Then he hears a gunshot inside. He goes inside to see the man lying on the floor, the man in the sweatshirt, he's lying on the floor. So our protagonist is our normal guy who we've been following. Then he leaves, goes out to his car, lights a cig, takes a little drag, hears a gunshot. Holy shit. Goes inside, there's a man in a sweatshirt who just killed himself on the floor. He's like, holy fuck, what the heck is happening? Looks at the bartender calling 911. He looks down at the dude who is laying on the floor who just shot his brains out. This guy has blood all over him, like blood seeped into his eyes, like the whites of his eyes are like red with blood. And then he looks down at the guy, he looks up at the bartender, and then he looks back at the body. And when he looks back at the body, the dude that just killed himself, the man in the sweatshirt, his eyes, he's lying still on the floor because he's dead, obviously, but his eyes like jump to look like lock eyes with the protagonist. They lock eyes for a second. Our protagonist like paces back and forth very slowly, and the dead dude's eyes like keep tracking him, like where he's walking. And then he blinks, and then basically he I could probably write it in a better way to like I like closed my eyes and like took a breath for a second to like reorient myself. And when he opens his eyes again, he's like in the guy's body who just killed himself. So he's like the guy at the sweatshirt was sitting at the bar when our protagonist walked in. He like is in this dude's body. It's like a time he like goes back in time and is basically occupying the consciousness of the dude who just killed himself. And so then that whole scene happens. And then after he kills himself, boom, here's chapter 2. Here we go. So, kind of fun. Pulled the trigger again. Click. How about another round? Bang. I screamed in fear and looked around as I tried to slow my breathing. Was that me? What's happening? Where am I? I thought to myself. I looked around the bar, delirious, and tried to orient myself. As I looked around, I saw the man with the hole in his head. He lay on the floor, still dead, still lifeless. I placed my hand over my mouth and tried not to let the saline river release from the aqueducts behind my eyes. Oh my God, is that me? My breath was erratic. No, calm down. That's not you. That's not you. That's not you. That's not you. I slowly began to realize what had happened, or at least what I thought had happened. I'm me! I felt dizzy and the room was spinning. I knelt on the floor trying to recollect myself and slow my breathing. My body felt like it was convulsing as I slowly searched for the smokes in my jacket pocket. I put the cigarette to my lips and fumbled for the lighter. My hands were shaking, so lighting it took much longer than it should have. I inhaled. Even though my lungs were being clouded by smoke, that breath felt clearer than any other in my life. The nicotine seeped into my bloodstream and was steadily delivered to each cell in my body, and that's as far as I've gotten. Thank you. Um, and so now it's just we gotta figure out where to go from here. But uh, yes, that's the story we're writing. So basically, this fog rolls in, and the idea is that the fog is this sentient being, but in essence, it was just born. So it doesn't even know what it is, what its purpose is, or what it can do. But the fog itself has this innate, like, telepathic or psychological manipulation on the citizens who are living within the cage of the fog. The fog has formed these very stark walls that surround the city, and all the people inside the cage or the walls of the fog, they are their brains have been like manipulated in a very subtle way to where like the fog wasn't always there, but if you asked someone, hey, when did the fog show up, they'd be like, it's always been there. But they remember their childhood and they remember the fog not being there, so then they kind of question their own concept of my headphones keep turning off. I'm so sorry because there's no music playing or any audio playing, so then my headphones just turn off if there's no feedback. But basically, this cage of fog is its own entity. It is a one being, and it is manipulating the psyches of the people who live within the city. And that is what has caused our main protagonist to feel like he's lost something. He needs to look for it, and it'll slowly be his kind of descent into madness as the fog begins to um, influence him more and more. And actually, I do have another paragraph right after he like shoots and kills himself and then like wakes up in his own body again. He'll wake up in his own body, kind of freak out. Holy shit, did I just kill myself? No, that's not me. I'm myself. I'm me. I'm here right now in this present moment. I grab a ciggy because I got to get a 9 milli lip cushy up in a cut so I can deal with my feelings. So he lights the cigarette, takes a drag. The nicotine seeped into my bloodstream and was steadily delivered to each cell in my body. I left the bar. I needed the crisp air to bring me out of my delirium. That burning sensation of the cold ripped through my lungs reminded or that burning sensation of the cold ripping through my lungs reminded me of who I was. It made me feel at home. I needed a smoke. No, I needed something more than that, but in the meantime, I pulled out another cigarette from my jacket pocket. It was my last one. It took a nice long drag after I was able to fight the wind enough to light it. It felt as Oh, it felt so lackluster. Okay, so then I contradict myself. So I have to pick. Is the nicotine the clearest breath I've ever had, or is it lackluster? But we'll figure it out. This is exactly why we're doing this, right? But in this version, this is all written on a piece of paper in hand. But in this version, it's I was able I took a nice long drag after I was able to fight the wind enough to light it. It felt so lackluster compared to when I first tried it. You need more, I heard a voice say. You really thought one small cigarette would satisfy you after what you've just seen? I didn't know where the voice was coming from. Who's there? I whispered. So that is really as far as we've gotten. And so, hope you liked it. I'm gonna maybe stream writing this more. Uh, might have some homies pull up as well on the stream or whatever, and just like we'll see where we go with that. So that was a story. It took about dang, no way it took 30 minutes to read that. It took 30 minutes to read 10 pages. So it's and there was a little bit of added flavor, but and I messed up a little bit. But we never really took a big break, so 30 minutes to read that is that's a good chunk. So we'll see how it goes, how that's received by the community, and then I'll try to figure out how to post that like in the Twitch section. So you should be able to see past streams, but for some reason that's not showing up on my Twitch account, so I need to figure out how to do that. And then I'll try to figure out how to upload the reading of the story so far, and then we could like incrementally like just post new videos or stream every time that I've written a little bit more, or I can write on stream. But if you guys would rather just like keep up with the story as it goes, I could like write off stream and then read it on stream and then just kind of update you guys how the story is progressing. But um and if you guys want me to like post it on Reddit or something like that, like on the Creepcast community Reddit, like subreddit, I already tried to submit this to No Sleep, but um, they didn't like that there was suicide or any type of graphic violence or anything explicit, really. So if anything's like actually scary or disturbing or makes someone feel uncomfortable, then they just chat ban him. So, it's a little annoying, but it'll be alright. It'll be alright. Yeah. So, thanks for listening. I think that is all I'm gonna do for today. So then I'm gonna try to figure out how to upload the recording of this, and then once I do that, I'll either write more off stream or I'll write on stream. But after reading it and like getting kind of refreshed on where I am, I'm not really super like locked in for writing right now. So I think I'm just gonna play like Marvel Rivals. So yeah.